uncovered means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Thank you, John Larson. I receive your kind words on behalf of all of our courageous members of the House of Representatives who want the best for the American people. And what we can do that is best for them in the next 24 hours is to pass affordable, accessible health care for all Americans. The best for all Americans is to have 32 million more people to have health insurance in our country. The best for...
Piece of stinking filth.
Shh, say it again, Shali. This is AJ of the InfoWars. Listen to the Shaliak. This is Alex Jones of InfoWars. Listen to Shaliak on the Cold Reality News and Report.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Well, hello there.
We were scared. They started to pour water on me. I don't know why they did this.
As professionals, we saw that there were no symptoms suggesting chemical weapons had been used.
In the stories that shaped the week here on RT, witnesses give testimony on the alleged chemical attack in Duma, but some refuse to listen. Also to come, the leaders of North and South Korea meet for the first time in over a decade to open a new chapter in the peninsula's history. And the key witness in the Russian doping scandal fails to confirm a number of his allegations, even though the careers of many Russian athletes may have been ended by his claims. Hello, welcome. You're watching The Weekly here on RT International, where it's just gone 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in Moscow. Now, this week, locals, including doctors from the Syrian town of Duma, testified at the UN-backed chemical watchdog headquarters in the Netherlands, saying they'd witnessed no signs of an alleged chemical attack on April the 7th. RT Arabic located a boy seen in an unverified White Helmets video showing the supposed aftermath of a toxic strike. He also gave evidence to the OPCW. But not everybody wanted to hear what he had to say, as Murad Gazdiev explains.
When these videos emerged, pundits and politicians took them as gospel. The truth, conclusive, indisputable and irrefutable proof of Assad's chemical sins.
The chemical weapon that killed dozens of civilians here.
Canisters that the Assad regime has previously used in chemical attacks.
The Assad regime has used the same yellow gas canisters.
The NSC telling Fox News they have a high degree of confidence that it was used.
They must have had solid evidence. You don't just launch 100 cruise missiles in an act of war without convincing proof beyond any doubt. Right? Right? Wrong.
We were in the basement and then heard someone outside scream, "Go to hospital." We were scared. They started to pour water on me. I don't know why they did this.
Pundits and politicians who've never been to Syria swear it happened. Witnesses, locals who were there in the hospital in question, say they didn't see a thing. All they saw was white helmets dousing confused civilians with water. Neither did the doctors see anything.
On the 7th of April, I was in the emergency room treating patients injured during the fighting. The same day, around 7 p.m., we started receiving patients with breathing problems, about 15 cases. This happened because people were inhaling smoke and dust. They only showed symptoms of choking and nothing more. It all happened because one missile hit a building nearby, and a lot of dust got into the hospital rooms.
The screams, chemical weapons were used to create panic. This lasted for about an hour. We were treating the patients and then sending them home. We had no fatalities or instances of people suffering from poisonous substances.
This isn't helping. Western journalists, their leaders, insist it happened. Syria, Russia and locals insist it didn't. Dead end.
If you don't understand normal language, let's try a different way. If you are impervious to our arguments, let us bring you the witnesses then.
So, Russia brought more than a dozen witnesses to the West, to the OPCW, and invited Western press. Perfect opportunity for journalists to get to the bottom of this. Right? Right?
How low do you have to go to bring a little child all the way here and threaten them?
Right off the bat, denial. But here's the answer.
We came here willingly. We demanded the Red Cross allow us to come here.
Wrong answer. In truth, there isn't a right answer. No matter what you say to some people, no matter what you show them, they'll never, ever come around or change their views.
How threatened do you have to feel to change your story and to deny a chemical weapons attack?
Stubborn doesn't do this fellow justice. He's really the reason that boy had to fly over.
Yes, Hassan is young, and it's been difficult for him to make it here. A flight here is no easy thing. Little Hassan has told you the truth. something you do not want to hear. It was a necessary measure. We needed to show that there was a lie, and a very dangerous one.
Anyone who hoped there'd be a breakthrough was in for a disappointment. Hours of testimony and evidence, all for naught.
You mentioned in the Russian press release that somebody here was going to be present who was a witness of producing the video of the white helmets, and I was wondering where this witness is and if he can tell his testimony.
It's my view, all these witnesses we heard from today are the evidence the White Helmets film is fake. I don't know, maybe I missed something.
In one ear, out the other, with no pause in between.
Laura Gaziev reporting there. Well, we discussed this with the independent researcher Vanessa Beeley, who has been to Duma herself to collect people's testimonies too.
When I spoke to people in Duma, doctors, medical staff, in the same hospital, in the medical point that received victims on that night, they all also told me exactly the same thing as people are now hearing in The Hague. And also when I went outside and spoke to civilians only 700 meters away from the alleged attack, they were also all saying the same thing to me, that there was no chemical weapon attack. I am surprised and I'm shocked the levels to which Western media has stooped over this alleged event in Duma, and the moral bankruptcy and degeneracy that we're seeing from Western media. I mean, to accuse Russia of basically exploiting a child in using the evidence of 11-year-old Hassan Diab, after Western media has cynically exploited children throughout the history of this conflict. I mean, if we don't have to go back too far to remember Bana al-Labed in East Aleppo, it is almost whatever evidence is produced now, it will be perceived as being influenced by Russia or by Syria. I mean, we've already seen the British government and Western media, if you like, laying the ground for saying that Russia had already pre-tampered with the site before the OPCW come in. So we can almost predict that if OPCW find no evidence of chemical weapon use in that area, the next line will be, oh, but Russia tampered with it and sanitized and sprayed air freshener around the site before OPCW could get there.
This week on Cold Reality Radio. It's Correspondents' Dinner. Even if Trump is a jackass, this behavior is absolutely offensive to anyone with half a brain. Meanwhile, Trump rallies in Michigan, threatens to close down the country over funding for border wall. Kanye gets it. More deception, more denial of the Duma so-called attack with chemical weapons. Pompeo lands in Saudi Arabia and immediately calls for new sanctions against Iran. Mystery group of wealthy donors and Soros spend $50 million for private Trump-Russia investigation to further divide the falling empire. The Pentagon's ray gun can stall trucks, cars with radiation blast. Artificial intelligence for policing stirs ethical concerns. Don't worry, no worries. Soros-funded group launches new app to help illegals avoid arrest and deportation. Incoming, NASA says 5 close asteroid flybys will take place today. Chinese smartphone sales collapsing, biggest decline ever. That and more on today's edition of Cold Reality Radio here on the UCY, the TV Broadcasting Network. This is Cold Reality Radio. As I said, and I am the host. I am the Shali Lama. And it really doesn't quite matter what evidence is brought to the table about the chemical attack. Everything is a lie except for Western media. And this can take any number of different avenues. You've got the American people that really truly believe that it's happened. You get people that have no clue about anything at all, except their own, wealth and hubris to say, "Oh, Assad's a bad guy," though. I mean, that's all you really have to hear. You know that the brainwashing is very powerful, and that's what you're going to get from people that really don't know. Now, has Assad, probably did some bad things to people that opposed him? Sure. We know that the Clintons have done horrific things to people. We know that Obama has blood on his hands. We know that this American empire is built on deception and lies, the media that controls the wealth of these families that are in control, these families that include, Hollywood stars, things like that. They're mostly, until they get pulled into a political side to further manipulate the star fuckers that are out there that will, vote whoever Kevin Costner votes for, or whoever Tom Cruise votes for, or which, by the way, I don't think that Cruise has ever endorsed any public politician, mostly because maybe he gets it. He realizes that it's all a bunch of bullshit. But, of course, that he largely benefits from his stardom. But these families that have basically ruled and controlled, it might have shifted a little bit and moved in certain directions. These people in power, the people that you see, the Trumps, the Clintons, the Bush family, they largely kind of work and do exactly what they're told to do. I don't know if they're, reptilian shapeshifters like David Icke brings into his breakdowns of where we're at this time. It's always fascinating to listen to him because he kind of breaks it down. He breaks down the whole these are families, but then of course he kind of pulls in the reptilian interdimensional Chikatori, his friend Credo Mutwa from Africa calls the children of the serpent the Chitahori. When Ike started talking about these interdimensional entities in his book, The Biggest Secret. Now, it's pretty fantastical, but at the same time, he does cover the pedophilia, these people that harm children and do awful things. These networks that are just running rampant in Europe, in Scotland, in all of these different countries. These people are just the worst. Jimmy Savile, who was frequently in the presence of the royal family, he was eventually found out to be a pedophile. And there's UN endorsed organizations that just recently a man was somewhere, and it's on Blacklisted News, where this gentleman, I forget what the story was, who the person was, but this guy was the figurehead for this organization for children and a pedophile, and found to be a pedophile. So when we think about these things and we think about the reasons why people do what they do, and David Icke largely says that empathy has been extracted from their genetic code, that they cannot empathize with someone. So blowing up a high rise or two high rises and killing 3,000 people is a means to an end for whatever the ultimate goal is. Starting a proxy war to regime change in Syria 7 years ago, proxy war to eliminate Gaddafi, another country that largely moved away from was starting to move away from the petrodollar, moving to the dinar, and Gaddafi trying to influence others in Africa to move away from that currency of control, the petrodollar. Syria also reported saying that they were moving away from the petrodollar to the euro, which, mostly the same, but there's other benefits to that system, that monetary system there, which obviously they put together to control these European Union countries or corporations, basically. If they're not a corporation and they're not in the euro or, in the European Union, then, like, I would imagine London and the UK have some sort of separation from it to a certain extent. But how do you do these things? Does Trump know that there's been a proxy war that's been going on over there for 7 years to remove him. I mean, if he had the ear or the likes of all of these different people like Alex Jones and the other guy, I forget what his name, actually made a documentary about this other guy that's been questioned and even called to testify about certain things. I forget what his name is. Roger Stone. Sorry, Roger Stone. So these guys are very, very informed about what's really going on in the world. Why would Trump, why wouldn't he say, hey, this is bad information? Why would he just go along with this, like last year this time with the missile strike, because his daughter was like, oh, this is so horrible. And then again this year. And then, of course, the communications between Russia and the U.S., which is just highly suspicious. And I don't mean like the collusion that MSN and these other CNN and these other just worthless fucking people, soulless people, the Maddows, the Andersons, the just minions of a system, of a dying system, a system that's being destroyed. And I'm going to play a clip in a bit that's going to show now the collusion between, with MSNBC hiring all of these conservatives now that are anti-Trump. Now, I don't give a shit about Donald Trump. In fact, if I were to listen to the correspondence rhetoric, some of it would be funny. I would think it would be funny. But that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to make people laugh. It's not making people think that what we're seeing here, the very election of him over the Clinton machine, is highly suspicious. Now, I get it because there's a certain amount of free will that's involved here. And there's a certain amount of deception. Like, I truly believe that Hillary Clinton knew that he was going to beat her. And I believe that that was the plan all along, that he was going to win, and all of this nightmarish polarization and the Soros-funded groups to create the division that will eventually bring the country down. And there'll be events that happen, global events that happen, that are going to exacerbate that hatred, that polarization, the left and the right, those that hate Trump with a passion, those that love his policies and the things that he's tried. They love that he missile attacked Syria, and that he apparently is the bringer of peace to North and South Korea, which will no doubt there will be a peace prize somewhere in there. Probably not. Probably not for him. I don't believe that he had a lot to do with it. I believe that there was, this whole thing about him shooting missiles and then the deactivation of those missiles. Now but that could be true. And then he realizes, I better play. I better play, because it turns out that all of this technology, all the tech, has these processors in it that are running the ARC processor. I don't know if I'm going to start listening to that Sovereign Tech, try to find out if he knows anything about this. But apparently, it's some kind of these Intel processors and these AMD processors and all these processors that run all of the computers and that are these motherboards for computers are designed with this processor that not only is a processor, CPU, but then it has a processor inside of the processor. And it controls many, many different things, much like the Stuxnet virus when it was implemented into, or supposedly into, Iran's nuclear facility. It was able to go in there and deactivate and do all types of different things. And one of the things that could happen as a result of that virus, and I don't know all of the details, but it can mess with the virus was designed to attack the PLCs, the programmable logic control. Okay, and for those of you that don't understand these microchips, okay, they are logic. They are, they're just transistors. So they can be programmed to create a charge or create a small charge. Something 3.5 volts and above is considered to be a 1 in computer binary language, or if it's something below 1 volt, then it's considered 0. So everything was based on these chips, these transistors that are just switches. Now you can program them to be, if you they create all this different type of AND, OR, and NAND. So AND, if you have an AND gate, and you put a 0 and a 0 into the transistor, you get a 0 out. If you put a 0 and a 1, the output is 1. Okay? If there's any ones in there, the output is 1. That means AND, meaning it's addition. Or if you have a NAND gate would be the opposite of that. So the only way, if you have a 0, what the heck is that? It was a 0. If you have 2 1s, then the output is a 0. So they changed the logic around so it would be the opposite of an AND. So if you have a 0 and a 1 in an AND gate, that would be a 1, but any 1 would be a 0. So if any 1 charge would be put into it, it would be a 0. So the opposite of addition logic, or there's the OR gates, the AND gates, the NAND gates, the NOR gates. And so they built this technology into these programmable logic circuits. There's a 555 timer circuit that is universal. Just like your transformers, your step up or step down transformers, where a radio that you plug in, all right, so say I have this mixer here, and then I have an adapter, and what that does is that adapter will input 125 volts of AC, and then it will manipulate it, change it, and then it will turn it into 50 volts DC that this device can use, just like anything else. Turn AC to DC to run something. So just electricity in and of itself, pumping into your house. And then, of course, the devices that run the television. I mean, this is just magic that they were able to just break down these devices and these elements and to make them do the things that they do for video, for analog to digital, digital to analog. I mean, it's absolute fucking magic. So there was a standard that was created when all that was put together. And as they were building this technology, and of course, you know, Microsoft and Apple and these companies that were created to do exactly what they're doing today. These weren't, accidents or successes like, oh, we never thought that. No, this was always supposed to be what Microsoft is, what it is today. And it is what it is because very, very powerful people and organizations. I mean, Microsoft is basically IBM. They had to create a spin-off because of laws that they created that protect them and their intellectual property, so that they had to figure out ways to if they go to court and say, you're colluding with this, or you're doing all these different legal terms that have been created, this poison legal system that benefits them, all they did was they say, okay, we're going to create another company. People aren't going to really know that we created it, but this is how we're going to fly under the radar of our own legal system that we created. And thus Microsoft was born, and Bill Gates' father, who was like the head of and or a very, very powerful man at Planned Parenthood, which is basically just killing the commoners. Okay, he emerges from this Microsoft creation as the guy. And of course there's so who's the guy? The owner, I want to say the owner of the Seattle Seahawks was a partner at one time. And then of course he was bought out. And there's actually interviews of him with him on 60 Minutes and things like that. But the control of Microsoft and the control of what was to be the internet is and was closely designed to do exactly what it's doing today. And of course, these chips, these Intel chips, have holes in them. And the reason that they have the holes in them is because anyone can hack into them at any time whatsoever. Doesn't matter whether you've got a firewall, okay, which is big business, firewalls. Not only can you buy yourself a firewall, but you can also pay for security. and not only security, but you can also pay for the services and things like that. So a firewall in and of itself is, it can block certain things from coming in, block certain things from going out. But at the same time, when those chips and that technology is and was created to be hackable, there's no stopping the creature that puts together all of this technology. And so as we move forward, if you have Russia using the same things and the different types of technology, I mean, there's ways to kind of do things, but if you have enough information and enough knowledge to be able to, that's honestly, that's where Edward Snowden kind of came out of. These people are trained in these systems. And if you look into Snowden and you look into some of these genealogies, he's got connections to the people. Okay? He has connections to the people. We're not the people. I'm not the people. The people are the George Washingtons and those families, all the presidents that are basically related, and also related to monarchies in Europe that have always controlled, that have always thought that they have the right to control, the right to rule. Elizabeth, Prince Charles, bloodlines that go back to Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes. And so, and these people did exist at one point. In what shape or form, it's really, really hard to tell because unless you just give in and believe everything that you've ever heard about, all of our world history. Good luck. Good luck. You might sound smart to some people, but the dirty little secret is that it's all been manipulated and all been just proliferated out there in a way that people think that it's real, and this happened, and that guy lived in that time, and this guy lived at that time, and Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and all of this other hocus pocus. Just absolute hocus pocus. I mean, they've got the ability to tell us whatever, and we will believe it. They will say whatever. If they say that one day we will colonize some other planet, that doesn't mean you, ma'am, sir. That doesn't mean you. That means them. They will, if in fact those other places actually exist at all. But they'll make you think that they do. They'll make you think that they do. With all of their artifice, all of their art, all of their movies and their technology, they'll make you believe shit. Just like before we even knew what the Earth was, they gave us Star Trek, and sure enough, it was a universe that was vast and all these different planets with green ladies and creatures and blue people, and they were all having issues that the Starship team, the Star Trekkers, had to solve way, way, way before we even knew what the Earth was or what it looked like from space. Isn't that fantastical? Isn't that something? We knew. We put it all into the television show, Star Trek, with all your favorite people. So we just it's all whatever, just believe whatever. And then next thing you know, the 69 trip, and then everything was good. Everything, we knew this, we went here, we went there. We lost all this data, this really, really critical data that was lost. Never to be found. Much like, hitting an area with missiles where there was supposedly a chemical attack prior to people going there to inspect to see if there was a chemical attack. So just, but again, I still believe, I believe that in every one of these organizations, it does not matter what they are, whether it's organizations that are for nuclear safety, or organizations that the OPCW, the chemical weapons people, that we know about chemical weapons, and we'll tell you whether there was a chemical attack here. I believe that organization is infiltrated by the hidden hand or minions of the system. You can't have an organization out there that's going to tell the truth. But in this case, because America is ultimately going to be demonized for being what? A fucking bully. Where on bad information, not only did they attack Iraq and find no weapons of mass destruction and all of the hideous things that the media knows about, the Jon Stewarts and, that crowd, the trendies, eventually all of this stuff, all of these things, I believe it's truly going to come out in a way that it's going to show that, he didn't do that. He didn't chemically attack his people. But it's not going to come out that the white helmets were working with the intelligence agencies here and there, our friends in the Middle East, the oppressed. So largely, America is going to be under global scrutiny at some point. And we will be looked at much like the world looked at Germany in World War II. And what did the Allies and the people that decided that Germany needed to be handled, the same thing's going to happen here, I predict. I don't think I'm going out on LA. America, there's so many things that are going to need to work and fit into the equation for the downfall of the American empire. There's war. There's going to be global demonization, much like the global demonization that took place for Germany, and there's going to be retribution. There's going to be a price to pay, but the people who caused it are not going to pay. The commoners are going to pay, because what happens during wars and civil wars, just like they said, people are just going to be killed. People are just going to die. Much like the football player from the Arizona Cardinals who went over to Afghanistan and was killed by friendly fire, but at the same time he was also communicating back to, on some level, he was communicating back to his family that there was some, I mean, if you're over there and you're fighting and you're like, yeah, we got to do this, and then it doesn't take long to see that what you've been told and the reason why you went there, something's not adding up. Something's not adding up. Because you can't fight a fake war on terror those who know that they're lying, or I mean, the people, the military commanders and the things that the people that have been doing this for a long time, they've got to be under some kind of fucking spell to continue to do either that, or they just get replaced from time to time. And of course, you can't say anything about, I mean, if you're a military person and you say, hey, this is fucked up, what's going on? You can't have that kind of, rhetoric and things like that being. So mostly those people will never be interviewed. They will never really truly be talked to. But war is profitable, and if you have fought in one, then you're the greatest thing ever, unless you stop going along with the narrative, then you become something. If Norman Schwarzkopf from the Gulf War back in the early 90s were to surface and say, hey, everything that went on back then was just bullshit. But I don't know. It's very, 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 very bizarre. But I truly believe that there's a continuity of agenda, not only, and maybe even in Syria, there's a continuity going on. I mean, Russia coming in to the aid of the Syrians, the aid of, the Iranians. And then, of course, nothing really happened. They didn't really do anything. But there was communication prior to that. So they were like, all right, well, we're just going to do this, and we're going to hit this, and we're going to hit that, and then Russia was like, okay. You got to make it look like it. You got to make it look like something. So largely, I truly believe that at these higher levels, that these people know what's going on, and we are moving towards a world conflict. It's not that hard to do. All it takes is one event. Say one event happened that didn't. And then somebody shoots here and shoots there, and next thing you know, it's hot. And then the combat starts, and sooner or later, people forget. Like, I'm sure you've had an argument with someone before. You get into a heated verbal argument, and then you're just like, ugh, how did we get here? How did we get here? And I believe that is the schism, like a schism of a thing where people get so upset about certain things, about life, about so many different topics, that they just argue with people that it's easier to argue with, family. And then you don't even realize what you were fucking arguing about. But then you start talking sense, and then you start getting somewhere. You start making headway to a certain extent, because that type of dialogue opens doors for people to really start to examine things and say, it really wasn't about this. It's really about that. And so but it's very discouraging. There's no doubt. Just found out this week about a friend of mine I haven't seen in probably, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years, died. His family, they didn't know. I mean, I wasn't on I haven't been on Facebook in forever. Kind of suspended it, deactivated it. I know it's still active, but yeah, and heart-related things, and he, you can say that people that don't really heed the warning and say, I mean, he had a stint, and then 2 years later, a bypass, and then another kind of heart attack, so, and then of course he got put on all these meds, and when he was deemed, when he passed, paramedics, they took all the drugs that he was on. Of course, the drugs that he was taking caused diabetes, so he was I guess he became insulin dependent. And then, at that point, if you don't try to do things holistically, and naturopathically, if you don't try to address these things, it's just a matter of time, because when you will rely on the system to fix you, and then that system will say, here, well, you need to take this, you're going to need to take that, you're going to take, and all these different drugs, and then eventually it just the drugs, and him, he has to take responsibility. Like if he was here right now, he would be like, yeah, I totally fucking, But then there's the Kevorkian system, where they assist you. But it's like Kevorkian would say, hey, listen, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help put you out of your misery. And by then the people were like, okay, what do I have to do? And And then with the system today, they assist you, but they say, oh, we're going to make you better. With all these toxic petroleum-based pharmacopoeia poisons. And just hearing about it is just so sobering, because, you know, it's one thing when you hear about somebody, you hear about somebody on TV with, dying from something, or you hear something, but it's much more sobering when it's somebody that, it's much more psychologically, stimulating in a negative way too. But it can be used in a positive way to say, and he has a daughter in college, and then his other son is going to be graduating school. And if I could say something to his young son, I would say, I think he would want you to learn from his mistakes. And so there's so many people these days, there's so many young people that, because I really do truly believe that McDonald's should just be murder. It should just be not McDonald's, but M is for murder, like the movie. But I think that their food has become more toxic over the years. I believe that their foods are largely GMO, and the oils that they cook, the deep fries, anything deep fried, anything heated, any carbohydrate, protein, puts just the body in a predicament where it's like, how do I process this? And then the body does what it can do, which it means it tries to repair itself from the damage that was done to it when it was processing this garbage. And of course, what Patrick Jordan says, calls doof, or food spelled backwards. But I mean, McDonald's, a lot of this deep fried stuff, it's just garbage, man. Just absolute toxic to the body. And we're seeing many younger people just experiencing, maladies that only older people get. Strokes, senility, heart attacks, shit like that. So, and the thing is that it happened, we were, I knew him since like 1989, 1990, tech school, hung out quite a bit, watched his kids largely kind of grow up. And, he was a sports fan, like a lot of people in suburban Philadelphia, and was a fan of the football team of the Eagles and everything. And if you don't know, a lot of people don't follow sports. I watch it, but I also keep it in perspective that it is bread and circus, and then it is another layer of that aids in the deception of what America is and what it's done, not only to its own people, but to, our others around the world. And And so he didn't even really get to see the team, the Eagle team here, win the Super Bowl because he died that morning. He died that morning. And so I had a long conversation with his widow, and I tell you, it was just very, very. It was a horrible, from what she was telling me, from what happened that morning, and it was very sobering and sad, very sad, very sad. And then, of course, there's others like subtopics and other things that as a result of him being there, certain issues and certain behaviors and things that were allowed to go on for a number of years. Now that's not those things, that him being there now without his let's just say without his influence anymore. He was kind of an enabler to a certain extent, but he also had this car accident that I think was kind of like the catalyst for a lot of stuff that kind of pushed forward into him not being very active, things like that. And then of course, which I believe because of his diet and everything that happened there, it was just like burgers and fries and diet soda, of course. He drank diet soda for, just constantly. And that causes metabolic acidosis and, just preps the body for disease. It really does. It preps and assists in disease. And so I'm going to try to do what I can to verbally try to convey, I'm obviously not the moral authority on so many things, but I think when you know the things that we know, the things that we talk about, the things that a lot of people talk about here on UCY about the state of the world, what reality, what's really happening, it kind of forces you to think in a way that clueless people largely don't think. They think, in a sense, it is kind of they live in a kind of country club where they don't know anything. They don't understand the true nature of reality. They don't understand what's being done to them, what's being done to their families, all these different things. They just have no idea that a doctor with a stethoscope and a white jacket is basically someone with a weapon that's slowly cutting you. Slowly cutting you. And no matter what, you say to people, even family, you say, listen, these statin drugs are just fucking awful drugs. Cholesterol, triglycerides, not an issue. You can reverse a lot of these so-called issues but when you find out that salt is actually good for you and the cholesterol from the eggs are good for you, and what they find when they autopsy people that have heart disease is not the cholesterol from the food that we eat, but the cholesterol that the body creates, that the liver creates. Again, I believe to repair the damage that, just like Kilmer McCulley, New York University, Kilmer, look it up, Kilmer McCulley, Kilmer McCulley. It'll probably correct you if you type it into the Google artificial intelligence box. But what he did was, he was a very, very prestigious guy, had a big position in New York University. But what he said was, when he was researching heart disease, he said it's not the cholesterol, but the inflammation of the blood vessel caused by acidosis, or a bad diet, a bad this, a bad that. And of course, the cholesterol goes in there to heal or repair the damage that's done. So if you didn't have the cholesterol, or if you didn't have the cholesterol that your body creates, then your body wouldn't be able to repair some of these things. So what he said was, or the mistake that he made for his career mistake, he said, so you don't need these statin drugs, these cholesterol lowering drugs. Boy, that was the end of him, because these universities are backed by, I mean, every one of these universities, with the exception, I'm sure, plus or minus 5%, they're medical. If they're medical, then boom, they're in bed with big pharma right away. And if you New York University, you can bet your bottom dollar that these guys that this organization is in bed with big pharma, because that's what they're here to do. They're here to train people in their destructive, poisonous system of healthcare, and then put you out there to write prescriptions for the drugs that the FDA, the poisons and the toxins, the suicide pills that big pharma approves, that the pharmaceutical companies create, and I mean, at the very core, this is all bad. Never should have. And most of these drugs should never, ever have been created. But we're seeing so much insanity in the world. And I'm going to play a clip from Funny Man Lee Camp from Redacted Tonight, and also another one where you can see now that the MSNBCs are now hiring conservatives that love George Bush but hate Donald Trump. So you see this morphing, this amalgamation of just garbage people. Again, Anderson Cooper, Maddow, largely there because of her, her being a lesbian, and obvious that she's. I mean, that's how she was designed. She was born, and she moves like a man. Her mannerisms are like a man, no pun. And so that's MSN said, let's do this. Let's make something out of her. Let's make something out of her. So that's what they do. They take people. But the thing is that she has free will. She doesn't know that they're using her for her sexual status, or her, that's what the system does. They grab people and they entice them, the carrot and the stick, right? So the carrot was, Obama being in there, and all they could do is just love him and And then the stick came in the form of Donald Trump, winning America's Got Talent, whatever the fuck he won, and it's everything's a joke. The government, everything is a joke anymore. So, and it was always there. The government in America was created to do exactly what it's doing. These aren't failures. These are successes. The healthcare thing, and people are looking at it like, oh, it's failing. No, it's a success to the system. People don't understand, like, why would the U.S. and these allies go over there and fucking destroy Libya and turn it into this? I mean, that was an unexpected, thing that happened. No, it's exactly what they wanted to happen. People can't make that connection that why would someone do this? Why would they go in there and do these things? Because maybe David Icke is right. Maybe they have no empathy. Maybe they're possessed by trans-dimensional, interdimensional, reptilian something or others. Going full circle back to when I started today. Whatever reason, they're just bad people. They're bad people. Bad people. And they're doing so much to control they control everything. It's all about money. It's all about taking everything, getting everybody into the same monetary system. Libya was leaving the petrodollar, boom, attacked, murder, kill, rape, pestilence, incredible, massive refugee crisis as a result of it. Same thing happened in Syria, the same type of refugee crisis, moving migrations. Who? The young guys, the people that would be there to fight, but maybe they don't, maybe they didn't love Syria like others would love Syria. So they took off, and now you have a clash of civilizations. I don't know that largely, that I think if people get displaced and they go somewhere, I think people would try to assimilate, at least to some extent. But all of the different terror attacks and the things that are happening, that have happened in Paris, that have happened in Germany, that have happened, these are, I just think that they're a different element. I think largely when you put a German culture together with a Syrian culture, there's going to be issues, but there's also provocateurs, and I think that's what these people are, provocateurs, and they will create the divide and conquer within that corporation to then destabilize. And that's what I believe the whole thing is that let's just destabilize the whole globe. What do we see? We spoke with Simon Roche 3 or 4 weeks ago. He is on the cusp of people coming to his property and saying, this belongs to us now, and either trying to kill him or fight him if he fights back, if he says, you're not taking anything of mine. So we're seeing this continuity of agenda everywhere. We're talking, Venezuela. We're talking South America. We've got many refugees on the border. Something's going to happen down there. Something's going to happen down there. There's going to be and if it's not violence, then it's going to be a kind of a standoff, or there'll be people like, what are they going to do? Where are they going to sleep? Where are they going to stay? And so largely you knew this was coming. You knew that there was going to be some more. There was many truckloads and train loads that came across the border and were assisted, given money, given clothes, given all kinds of different accoutrements. And that was part of, obviously part of a plan through the Obama administration to get this moving and going. And then you don't know. Obviously, you don't know who's in the country. But we got to fight the war on terror, but hey, let's let everybody in through it's just bullshit. War on terror is a lie. It's always been a lie. It was just a lie that enabled more world domination, more domination of land elsewhere, whether it be Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, South Africa, whatever. It's all about order, them bringing the order out of the chaos once they've closed the chaos book, which God only knows when that's going to happen. Then they'll bring the order, and that's usually them fucking punching somebody or killing somebody or enslaving somebody. But make no mistake, these are all successes for those that have brought all of these problems to be. These are successes. Anytime there's someone starving or killing someone or clash of civilizations, whatever. They knew in these years that, Wesley Clark, what Wesley Clark said, and largely people know it. Saw it on Redacted with Lee Camp saying that, this is basically how these things work. And so let's see what we got here. I'm going to play another. Let's go to. All right, let's finish this up here.
Breaking news! There has been a chemical attack in America. Apparently it took place in Flint, Michigan. The water there is filled with lead, and sadly this chemical attack has been going on for years. The government... Wait. This just in. There's been another chemical attack in the United States. In fact, it's all across the United States. Cities have higher levels of lead poisoning than even Flint, Michigan. No word yet on if and when the United States military will be invading cities across America in order to make them safe from these chemicals. This just in. There's been a chemical attack in the United States. Police officers have hosed down men, women, and children with a chemical that is actually illegal, according to the Geneva Conventions. Truly revolting to see such a chemical weapons attack. As PolitiFact states, the Chemical Weapons Convention bans the development, production, acquisition, stockpiling, retention, transfer, or use of chemical weapons, and tear gas qualifies under the convention as a chemical weapon. So, yeah, that truly is... this just in. There's been a chemical weapons attack in the United States. For decades, Shell and Dow hid a highly potent cancer-causing chemical in 2 widely used pesticides, contaminating drinking water for millions of people in California and beyond. I mean, the idea that this could happen in our own... Sorry. This just in, there's been a chemical attack in the United States. There's a class action lawsuit against Monsanto claiming that its hugely popular herbicide Roundup causes cancer. The lawsuit also says Monsanto knew it causes cancer and yet continued to promote it as a wonderful chemical to spray in your fields, in your house, on your dog, in your baby's face, you know, just to get that baby cheek glow we all want. And there have been about 24 studies, including the WHO, showing a link between Roundup or glyphosate and cancer, including genetic damage, skin tumors, thyroid damage, anemia, headaches, nosebleeds, dizziness, tiredness, nausea, eye and skin irritation, asthma, and breathing difficulties. In their defense, those also sound like the side effects of my Saturday night. So, except the cancer. No cancer. And now recent reports show that glyphosate is showing up in wine, in beer, in your foods, even in your baby's face. So basically this chemical attack has hit nearly every American, possibly killing thousands. Again, it's tough to say when the U.S. military will be called in to stop Monsanto. Should be any minute now. Although, then again, the military and Monsanto are old buddies. They were in NAM together. They were. According to Dow Chemical's own website, companies supplying Agent Orange to the government included the Dow Chemical Company and Monsanto. So Monsanto made chemical weapons for the U.S. military. They worked so well, Monsanto was like, let's crack open the American market, huh, shall we?
MSNBC, the self-proclaimed liberal channel, is moving to the right. No, hosts are not wielding tiki torches and getting Confederate flag tattoos. It's worse. The network continues to hire a gaggle of conservative and Republican talent simply because they're anti-Trump. But not one leftist progressive commentator. As they say, opinions are like assholes. So MSNBC is licking the GOP's opinion, while fingering the Democratic establishment's opinion. And the real left is relegated to watching from outside the window like a bunch of perverts. According to FAIR founder and former MSNBC producer Jeff Cohen, MSNBC's experts, saviors, those people that are going to save us from Trump are war hawks, spooks, spies, dishonest people who progressives have traditionally attacked. No, it's not what you think. MSGOP wasn't trying to stifle progressive criticism of war. They just had to protect their employees from progressive harassment. Progressives have been known to ask questions. And these new Republican hires are very sensitive and fragile people. Just look at the suffering former Bush advisor Nicole Wallace had to endure when Trump was elected.
So all my Republican friends want to know how I've come to terms with this so easily, but as you've told America, I've been in therapy for 10 months.
Oh, Nicole, we've had enough noontime glasses of wine with you to know exactly how your therapy has been going.
Rachel, that was between you, me, and the weapons contractors we brunch with. Rachel Mad Dog Maddow helped the news network soar to the top spot, serving her nightly dish of Connect the Bots Russiagate hysteria. Yet the channel's primetime liberal stars have failed to address the West Virginia teachers' strike, a massive grassroots mobilization of labor, and appear to think the catastrophic U.S.-backed war in Yemen, the largest humanitarian crisis in the world, is no big deal. Even Breitbart mentioned the war on Yemen more than MSNBD, which stands for no big deal, for those of you over 50. In 2010, MSNBC defined their liberal vision as leaning forward, with ads of Maddow taking a meditative stroll through a windmill farm. Then in 2016, they hired conservative talk show host Hugh Hewitt, who makes up his own climate science.
Could be a real problem over 500 years. All right. But they're going to say that as a result of that, you can't use Kleenex.
Hugh asks an important question. What will happen to our boogers and our children's boogers? Hugh Hewitt was featured in an MSNBC ad with the slogan, "People might accuse us of leaning too far to the right." But after my careful analysis of the network's shifting and tilting, I would accuse the executives of being prom-level drunk. MS inebriated can't walk a straight line. It's a commercial enterprise that stumbled into a center-left position. It's just business. Back in the day, they feared Phil Donahue's opposition to the Iraq War would be bad for business. So they got rid of his show.
They were terrified of the anti-war voice, and that is not an overstatement. Anti-war voices were not popular. And if you're General Electric, you certainly don't want an anti-war voice on a cable channel that you own. Donald Rumsfeld's your biggest customer.
Today, Donahue just doesn't have the credentials to work at the station, unlike Bill Kristol, who crusaded for the Iraq War, saying it would last only 2 months. Now, Kristol would argue that time is a construct, and we need to destroy that construct. Despite a lack of proof that the construct even exists, and all the evidence of that construct comes from Western countries who would profit from invading the country where the construct supposedly exists, while millions of innocent people die, all in the name of destroying. Now the network is a reunion of Bush-era neocons and corporate establishment Democrats having noontime wine. And that's becoming the standard of U.S. media, where the voices against war, climate change, and the pillaging of Wall Street are absent. And when someone tries to bring up a progressive issue like ending mass surveillance, this is what happens.
Congresswoman, let me interrupt you just for a moment. We've got some breaking news out of Miami. Stand by, if you will. Right now in Miami, Justin Bieber has been arrested on a number of charges. The judge is reading the charges, including resisting arrest and driving under the influence.
Reporting from the White House, this is Naomi Caravani, redacted tonight.
Goldman Sachs has outdone themselves this time, which that's a lot to say for a company that exploited a global economy collapse and helped steal millions of American homes from people. That's saying a lot. And what I'm about to show you, the reason it has come out, is basically the market-driven economy is increasingly revealing its true colors, its true self. We're seeing it more and more because we're circling the drain, you know, like in a toilet bowl. We're circling the drain, and as it goes down, it gets faster and faster, right? It speeds up. So we're getting closer to the end and speeding up. We are beginning to see more and more how disgusting a profit above all else economy really is. When Trump bombed Syria, the stocks of the weapons contractors shot up. That spike in stocks, it's a spike in the gravity of capitalism pulling people towards death and destruction. That's what they like. That's how you can view it. The gravity towards our own death and destruction. And there's not even a debate about it, right? There's no discussion on your mainstream media as to whether that is really what we want in our society. Not just on your mainstream media, but almost anywhere. No one, none. You tell me, how many shows did you see on your media going, weapon contractors benefited from our bombing this week? Isn't that revolting? Doesn't that just make you like gag and vomit into your soup? Doesn't that mean we've created an upside down system that rewards barbaric bullshit? How many times did you see that? How many news anchors should be gagging as they're reporting this? It should be like, we just fired missiles into like that should be the broadcast. But no, you'll hear no discussion about it. You're more likely to hear them discuss the best sexual positions for people with 3 arms. You're more likely to see that on CNN. Can't happen. A profit-driven world creates a disgusting world with a contorted value system. And that's what we're getting to. We're spinning faster and faster. One, where oil companies view oil spills that destroy whole coastal communities as the price of doing business. A world where millions of animals abused for their entire lives is just the price of doing breakfast. A world where massive hurricane destruction is a business opportunity. It's a chance to make money. Hey, honey, check the weather report. Are there any 155 mile per hour business opportunities ripping through any Caribbean islands today? And now corporations no longer need to worry about government interference. They're not even concerned about it anymore because they own the government. For them to worry about that, it would be like you worrying that your carpet might stop you from going out to a movie that night. You know, I think we've established what the carpet does. It lays there. And for corporations, it's the same with our government. So now the corporations don't have that worry. They are being far more forthright with their goals and their motivations. It's not hushed tones anymore. They can do things like unleash attack dogs on protesters in Standing Rock and not worry about the consequences. Why should they care? The worst that could happen to them is they pay a tiny fine. A sorry we bit you with vicious man-eating dogs for trying to protect your own property fine. That doesn't cost them a day's labor. Anyway, that brings me to these new revelations about what Goldman Sachs told their investors. In a recent report, one analyst asked their clients, is curing patients a sustainable business model? That's the question. That's right, folks. One of the largest investment firms in the world is openly saying in financial reports that curing people of terrible diseases is not good for business. It's a bad idea. Analyst Salveen Richter wrote, the potential to deliver one-shot cures is one of the most attractive aspects of gene therapy. However, such treatments offer a very different outlook with regard to recurring revenue versus chronic therapies. While this proposition carries tremendous value for patients and society, it just helps society, it could represent a challenge for genome medicine developers looking for sustained cash flow. Curing people will hurt our cash flow. They fucking said that. They outright said that. They're not even pretending they care anymore. He says, while it could have tremendous value for society and for patients and for human beings, it's a challenge for our fucking cash flow.
Yep. So let's see here.
Please welcome Michelle Wolf.
Correspondence.
Yeah. All right. This is long. This has been long. Yeah. Good evening. Good evening. Here we are, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Like a porn star says when she's about to have sex with a Trump, let's get this over with. Yes, kiddos, this is your getting tonight. I'm going to skip a lot of the normal pleasantries. We're at a Hilton. It's not nice. This is on C-SPAN. No one watches that. Trump is president. It's not ideal. The White House Correspondents Association, thank you for having me. The monkfish was fine. And just a reminder to everyone, I'm here to make jokes. I have no agenda. I'm not trying to get anything accomplished. So everyone that's here from Congress, you should feel right at home. Now, before we get too far, a little bit about me. A lot of you might not know who I am. I'm 32 years old, which is an odd age. 10 years too young to host this event, and 20 years too old for Roy Moore. I know, he almost got elected. Yeah. was fun. It was fun. Honestly, I never really thought I'd be a comedian, but I did take an aptitude test in 7th grade, and this is 100% true. I took an aptitude test in 7th grade, and it said my best profession was a clown or a mime. Well, at first it said clown, and then it heard my voice and was like, or maybe mime. Think about mime. And I know as much as some of you might want me to, it's 2018 and I'm a woman, so you cannot shut me up. Unless you have Michael Cohen wire me $130,000. Michael, you can find me on Venmo under my porn star name, Reince Priebus. Reince just gave a thumbs up. Okay. Now, people are saying America is more divided than ever. But I think no matter what you support politically, we can all agree that this is a great time for craft stores. Because of all the protests, poster board has been flying off the shelves faster than Robert Mueller can say, "You've been subpoenaed." Thanks to Trump, pink yarn sales are through the roof. After Trump got elected, women started knitting those pussy hats. When I first saw them, I was like, that's a pussy? I guess mine just has a lot more yarn on it. Yeah. Should have done more research before you got me to do this. Now, there is a lot to cover tonight. There's a lot to go over. I can't get to everything. I know there's a lot of people that want me to talk about Russia and Putin and collusion, but I'm not going to do that because there's also a lot of liberal media here, and I've never really wanted to know what any of you look like when you orgasm. Except for maybe you, Jake Tapper. I bet it's something like this. Okay, that's all the time we have. Crazy that the Trump campaign was in contact with Russia when the Hillary campaign wasn't even in contact with Michigan. It's a direct flight. It's so close. Of course, Trump isn't here, if you haven't noticed. He's not here. And I know I would drag him here myself, but it turns out the President of the United States is the one pussy you're not allowed to grab. He said it first. Yeah, he did. You remember? Good. Now, I know people really want me to go after Trump tonight, but I think we should give the president credit when he deserves it. Like, he pulled out of the Paris Agreement. And I think he should get credit for that because he said he was going to pull out, and then he did, and that's a refreshing quality in a man. Most men are like, I forgot. I'll get you next time. Oh, there's going to be a next time? When people say romance is dead. People call Trump names all the time. And look, I could call Trump a racist or a misogynist or xenophobic or unstable or incompetent or impotent. But he's heard all of those and he doesn't care. So tonight, I'm going to try to make fun of the president in a new way, in a way that I think will really get him. Mr. President, I don't think you're very rich. Like, I think you might be rich in Idaho, but in New York, you're doing fine. Trump is the only person that still watches Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and thinks, me. Although I'm not sure you'd get very far. He'd get to like the third question and be like, I have to phone a Fox and Friend. We're going to try a fun new thing, okay? I'm going to say Trump is so broke, and you guys go, how broke is he? All right? Trump is so broke. How broke is he? He has to fly failed business class. Trump is so broke. How broke is he? He looked for foreign oil in Don Jr.'s hair. Trump is so broke. How broke is he? Southwest used him as one of their engines. I know, it's so soon. It's so soon for that joke. Why did she tell it? It's so soon. Trump is so broke. He had to borrow money from the Russians, and now he's compromised and not susceptible to blackmail and possibly responsible for the collapse of the Republic. Yay! It's a fun game. Trump is racist, though. He loves white nationalists, which is a weird term for a Nazi. Calling a Nazi a white nationalist is like calling a pedophile a kid friend. Or Harvey Weinstein a ladies' man. Which isn't really fair. He also likes plants. Trump's also an idea guy. He's got loads of ideas. You gotta love him for that. He wants to give teachers guns, and I support that, because then they can sell them for things they need, like supplies. A lot of protractors. A lot of people want Trump to be impeached. I do not, because just when you think Trump is awful, you remember Mike Pence. Mike Pence is what happens when Anderson Cooper isn't gay. Mike Pence is the kind of guy that brushes his teeth and then drinks orange juice and thinks, Mike Pence is also very anti-choice. He thinks abortion is murder, which, first of all, don't knock it till you try it. And when you do try it, really knock it. You know, you got to get that baby out of there. And yeah, sure, you can groan all you want. I know a lot of you are very anti-abortion, you know, unless it's the one you got for your secret mistress. It's fun how values can waver. But good for you. Mike Pence is a weirdo, though. He's a weird little guy. He won't meet with other women without his wife present. When people first heard this, they were like, that's crazy. But now in this current climate, they're like, that's a good witness. Which, of course, brings me to the Me Too movement. It's probably the reason I'm here. They were like, a woman's probably not going to jerk off in front of anyone, right? And to that I say, don't count your chickens. There's a lot of parties. Now, I've worked in a lot of male-dominated fields. Before comedy, I worked at a tech company, and before that, I worked on Wall Street. And honestly, I've never really been sexually harassed. That being said, I did work at Bear Stearns in 2008. So although I haven't been sexually harassed, I've definitely been fucked. Yeah, that whole company went down on me without my consent. And no men got in trouble for that one either. No, things are changing. Men are being held accountable. You know, Al Franken was ousted. That one really hurt liberals. But I believe it was the great Ted Kennedy who said, wow, that's crazy. I murdered a woman. Chemiclitic in theaters now. I did have a lot of jokes. I had a lot of jokes about cabinet members, but I had to scrap all of those because everyone has been fired. You guys are going through cabinet members quicker than Starbucks throws out black people. No, don't worry. They're having an afternoon. That'll solve it. We just needed an afternoon. Mitch McConnell isn't here tonight. He had a prior engagement. He's finally getting his neck circumcised. Mazel. Paul Ryan also couldn't make it. Of course, he's already been circumcised. Unfortunately, while they were down there, they also took his balls. Yeah, bye, Paul. Great acting, though, in that video. Republicans are easy to make fun of. You know, it's like shooting fish in a Chris Christie. But I also want to make fun of Democrats. Democrats are harder to make fun of because you guys don't do anything. People think you might flip the House and Senate this November, but you guys always find a way to mess it up. You're somehow going to lose by 12 points to a guy named Jeff Pedophile Nazi Doctor. Oh, he's a doctor. We should definitely talk about the women in the Trump administration. There's Kellyanne Conway. Man, she has the perfect last name for what she does. Conway. It's like if my name was Michelle Jokes, frizzy hair, small tits. You guys gotta stop putting Kellyanne on your shows. All she does is lie. If you don't give her a platform, she has nowhere to lie. It's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods, how do we get Kellyanne under that tree? I'm not suggesting she gets hurt, just stuck. Stuck under a tree. Incidentally, a tree falls in the woods is Scott Pruitt's definition of porn. Yeah, we all have our kinks. There's also, of course, Ivanka. She was supposed to be an advocate for women, but it turns out she's about as helpful to women as an empty box of tampons. She's done nothing to satisfy women. So I guess, like father, like daughter. Oh, you don't think he's good in bed. Come on. She does clean up nice, though. Ivanka cleans up nice. She's the diaper genie of the administration. On the outside, she looks sleek, but the inside, it's still full of shit. And, of course, we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say, I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little bitch, Jim Acosta.
All right, well, that right there was a little example of, and some of the stuff that she said was funny, and she's, very cute. This Michelle Wolf, you can see her on the front page, I believe, of the Drudge Report, because apparently she is the one that crossed the line many times. And it is pretty amazing how they've, again, and I've spoke about this many times, how they can just, now, you know what, pro-life, whatever, pro-choice, I'm not getting involved in that. Whatever you do, you have to answer to yourself and or whatever at some point. So, I'm not getting, I'm not making a decision on that one. But the way that women and men just say, whatever, lie, kill a baby, kill something that's alive. It says a lot about our society. Thanks for joining in today on Cult Reality Radio here on the UCY.TV Broadcasting Network, Sunday, April 29th. Stay tuned for Rock the Boat and all of the other incredible programming here on UCY.TV, the Broadcasting Network. Have a good rest of your weekend.
There is only one holistic system of systems. I will MK Ultra ya, put the MK scope on ya. If the MK hits you, it's guaranteed to open ya. The 57mm Mark 110, 220 rounds a minute, try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list, that's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. They are nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform shocking on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to the mercenary. For the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor step into them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran.